Remember that the typical relationship between these rates, okay, is that LIBOR is the highest one, Fed funds is in the middle, and repo is below that. Okay. This itself, I think, is something that needs to be explained. And once we understand that, then it's just going to be, in a way, the opposite explanation when we get to. Now, Stigum says this. If you've read the chapter, she puzzles over this too. You know, why is this the pattern? Why is this the pattern? She's not so much worried about LIBOR, but why are Fed funds greater than RP? Okay, and she has two reasons that she gives. One, which sounds very commonsensical, and I think is accepted by almost everybody. Okay, is that, well, look, that makes sense because repurchase agreements are secured and Fed funds are not. And so that spread is just a sort of credit spread. It's a default risk spread or something like that. That's what that must be. Now we know that can't really be true because now it's in reverse. So but we didn't know that back then. So, and I didn't find it convincing back then either. Okay, and the reason is this. Nobody lends in the unsecured market, okay, with any thought at all that there's going to be default. Okay, if you think there's going to be default, you just don't lend. You know, you control this with your credit line. You know, you just say, I'm not going to lend to you. You don't say, I'm going to lend to you at a little higher rate. Did you see the numbers? $137. You know, who risks $1 million, okay, to make $137 worth of interest, you know, overnight? It's just not worth it. Better to just not do the loan at all. Okay. So I don't think it's right to say that although they're unsecured, they're in some sense have default risk. It doesn't seem right. Also, in fact, you're dealing here with banks, you know, who have recourse to the Fed to borrow, and it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right that this could really be default risk. The other answer she proposes, and other people say maybe too, is, oh well, maybe this is just because some people have to borrow on Fed funds market and don't have access to the RP market or something. You know, there's an arbitrage, right, that should be happening here. But anyone can do, I mean, there are many, many people who can do this arbitrage. You know, certainly any bank can borrow in the RP market and lend in the Fed funds market. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You know, so they don't seem compelling to me, these answers. So what is compelling to me? Partly this comes to Walter Bagehot. And I will tell you in a week or two about the world that Bagehot lived in. And that world, what we need to know for here is just a little sketch of that, which is a world where there's a market rate of interest, where bill brokers and people in the London money market are trading with each other, and they're creating a market rate of interest. And then there's the official rate of interest, the bank rate of interest, which is the discount rate quoted by the central bank, by the Bank of England. Usually, the bank rate is greater than the market rate. And because of that, people don't come to the bank to do discounts until the market rate pushes up. And the stresses in the market drive up the market rate of interest, and when it hits the bank rate, they all flood to the Bank of England for discount. That's how monetary policy sort of worked back then. This then, just putting on my historical and also institutional hat, I say to myself, I think this is more or less the way it worked before the crisis, okay, in the United States, okay, except that the analog of bank rate was the Fed funds target, okay, and the analog of the market rate was repo. Okay, so the repo rate was below Fed funds as a way of creating discipline in the market, the balance of discipline and elasticity. This isn't the first time you've heard these words. Okay, RP is the cheapest, so the first place you go to try to borrow is RP. Okay, and you know that you borrow as much as you can. This is how dealers operate. You try to repo out all your securities, all of them, okay? It's the cheapest form of borrowing there is, okay? If you need more funds, okay, you know that you're going to have to go to the more expensive money, okay? So this is the discipline part, okay? If you're a dealer, you have to go to the bank, the dealer's bank, and you borrow, and you do not borrow at the Fed funds rate. You borrow at Fed funds plus 50 basis points.